Welcome to Beyond the Clinic, the podcast for health professionals ready to transform their expertise into innovative income streams that extend beyond the traditional clinic model. I'm Sarah Armand-Butchell. I'm a registered dietitian and certified business coach and proud owner of 2 successful online businesses. I understand the leap from the security of a regular salary can feel intimidating because I've been there too. But it doesn't have to be scary, and you do not have to do this alone. Here you'll learn tangible strategies to accelerate your business growth. So if you're dreaming of using your expertise to create impact and a life of freedom, then you're in the right place. Welcome along. I replaced my 8B NHS salary in just 2 years in my nutrition business. And today I'm going to walk you through the exact pathway that I would follow if I was starting from scratch and wanted to replace my salary as quickly as possible. So whether you're brand new to business or already full-time in your private practice, this episode is for you. Right now, you might be in one of 3 places. You're still working full-time in the NHS and thinking about starting your own business, but you haven't properly got off the ground yet. Or you're working part-time inside the NHS, trying to build your business around long shifts and squeezing it into evenings and weekends. Or number 3, you're full-time in your business, but things feel inconsistent. Maybe you're getting some clients and seeing glimpses of what's possible, but not yet at the level where you feel your income is stable or predictable or enough to fully rely on. Whichever situation you're in, replacing your NHS salary might feel like a long way off now, but I can promise you it is absolutely possible. And in today's episode, I'm going to share with you my proven 9-step roadmap that's going to help you get there. You will learn the exact order to focus on things to start getting consistent clients and building a stable and reliable income. And make sure to stay till the very end of this episode for some exciting details on how you can get access to everything I talk about inside the roadmap, along with a chance to win a £1,000 cash bonus. Right then, let's get into it. Now, maybe you've already got a website. Maybe you've got an Instagram account. You've listed yourself in the BDA Freelance Dietitians directory. You're doing all the things it feels like you should be doing. And yet the inquiries and the clients just aren't consistent enough. Or when they do come in, it's a bit stop and start and a bit unpredictable and never quite enough to feel like you can relax into your business and trust that it's going to support you properly. And of course, this can come with a lot of financial pressures, stress, anxiety, frustration. And the most frustrating part is that you've got all the clinical skills, you've got years and years of training and experience, and you know that you can help people, right? If any of this is feeling close to home right now, here's the thing that you should know. The issue is almost always the order in which you're doing things in your business. What I've seen time and time again is that most dietitians try to build their business in the wrong sequence. So, for example, you might start with things like getting your website up and running and posting content on Instagram, all before you've actually built the foundations that make sure what you're doing is actually going to bring in clients. That's a bit like building the house and starting with the roof. Without the foundations underneath, nothing is actually going to hold. And I've learned firsthand the importance of doing things in the right order in your business. Back in 2017, I first started to try to build my business online. Now, at that point, I already had a private practice running alongside my NHS job, and I'd been doing that for about 15 years. But I was seeing a really broad mix of clients, helping with everything from allergies to weaning to weight management to fussy eating and diabetes. My plan was to take what I was doing online. And my thinking was, great, my niche is pediatrics and my ideal clients are affluent parents who can afford private healthcare. Except it wasn't clear enough. And that wasn't, in fact, a niche at all. Because those parents that I was intending to help had completely different hopes and dreams for their children. And I was trying to speak to all of these people at once, a pretty impossible task. My website became this strange mix of all things child nutrition, and my offers were just, well, scattered, because I ended up creating lots of different things for lots of different problems. Now, of course, this was a good few years ago now, almost 10, but I want you to know that in my early days of business, I made mistakes too. And if I could go on to replace my NHS salary and grow a multiple six-figure nutrition business even after making these huge mistakes, there's no reason that you can't do the same thing. As soon as you start focusing on the right things in the right order, you too can build momentum, and actually quite fast as well. Okay, let's get on with the good stuff. I'm now going to take you through the brand new roadmap that I've created to use with my clients to help them go from inconsistent income to building a business that can actually replace their NHS salary. So, over the last 6 years in the business coaching space, working with more than 100 dietitians actually and other healthcare professionals, I've seen some very clear patterns emerge in terms of who builds successful businesses and who stays stuck. And what I can tell you with absolute certainty is it's got nothing to do with your qualifications, your confidence levels, or how visible you are. But it has entirely to do with whether or not they're focusing on the right things at the right time in the right order. And this is exactly why I've created my 9-step roadmap, which I call the business prescription path. So there are 3 phases to this path. Phase 1 is idea, getting your foundations right. Phase 2 is income, building a system that generates clients. And phase 3 is independence, that's scaling your business. And the reason most dietitians aren't getting consistent income or clients is because they jump into phases 2 and 3 before they've done the work in phase 1. So let's talk about step 1 of phase 1, and that is all about shifting your professional identity. A big part of this is unlearning a lot of the NHS trained habits that actually make business harder than it needs to be. Now, these habits have been drilled into you over years and years of training and then working within a very structured system. So, for example, in the NHS, you're very much used to needing permission because you need approvals and sign-offs. So when you move into business, it's really common to find yourself hesitating or overthinking content ideas, wondering, am I really allowed to say this? And actually holding back on sharing your opinions. There's also the shift from patients to clients. In the NHS, work comes to you. You don't even have to think about how someone finds you. Your job is simply to turn up and deliver the care once they arrive. So in business, it can feel really unnatural to suddenly have to attract people. And what often happens is you end up creating a website, sticking your details on some directories, and waiting to be found instead of actively inviting people to work with you. Then there's probably the biggest one, how you relate to money and value. You've been trained to prioritize care, so it's really common for us to undercharge and to overgive and put everyone else's needs ahead of your business. And then, of course, there's good old imposter syndrome. And you know what? That affects over 90% of dietitians who move into private practice. This mindset work needs to be something that you prioritize early on, right at the very start, in fact. Of course, you won't just unlearn these habits overnight. It is very much a process, but simply by being aware of them is the first step towards changing them. And then step 2, this is all about building the operational side of your business so that everything runs properly behind the scenes. And the reason this is important at this stage is because once you start bringing in clients, things can very quickly become a bit chaotic if you don't have the right tools and systems in place. You don't want to be juggling everything in your head or losing track of tasks. So, what do I mean by the operational side of things? So, it includes things like setting up a business hub. So, something like Google Drive or OneDrive for storing and organizing everything in one place, and Asana or another project management tool. Now, I use Asana for planning out things like my social media content, but you can use it for loads of different things like client workflows or onboarding processes. Anything that needs to be stored and tracked so it doesn't actually need to live in your head. Honestly, it frees up so much mental load. And then another part of this operational foundational step is getting really clear on the legal and compliance side of things. So, the Information Commissioner's Office, GDPR, terms and conditions, contracts, insurance, all of that good stuff, as well as understanding exactly what you can and can't say about nutrition claims, recommending products, and working with brands as a registered dietitian. A lot of people just assume that they can deal with this stuff once the business gets a bit bigger, but trust me, you'll save yourself a lot of risk and unnecessary stress if you just sort out this stuff from the very beginning. Step 3 is gathering your evidence base on whether your business idea is viable. And you know what? It's really sad to say, but this is where a lot of dietitians accidentally go wrong. They start by creating offers and building websites and posting content before they've really nailed who they're talking to, whether that person is actually willing to pay money for your support, and whether there's enough of them to turn this into a business. This evidence base actually influences everything that comes afterwards and determines whether you will actually build a profitable business or not. One of my Accelerate clients, Jane, she'll vouch for this. Before Jane joined Accelerate, she was working incredibly hard in her private practice, but it just wasn't translating into the clients or the income that she needed. The only consistent income she had was coming from Bupa, who didn't pay her very well, and the occasional private referral from one of the local hospital consultants. Now, one of the biggest reasons for that was that she wasn't being specific enough about who she was trying to help. She was broadly targeting older adults with multiple health conditions that often came with conflicting advice. Her intention was to help her clients feel less confused about how to manage their diets and their medical conditions. But together we made the decision to narrow her focus right down to one very, very specific niche, constipation in this age group. And you know what? That was a brilliant move for her. So instead of trying to create content that fit a wide and somewhat vague audience, she could now create as if she was speaking directly to one person, reflecting back their exact worries, their frustrations, their fears, and their hopes and goals for what they truly wanted. And once she started doing that, she started getting more and more inquiries directly through her blogs on her website and her Facebook posts. It's so important to remember that your niche isn't your clinical speciality. It's far more precise than the area you decided to train in. And that's where I think so many dietitians get stuck. Your speciality is what you know. It's your clinical area of expertise, but your niche is a specific person with a specific problem that you help them with. And the key word here is specific. There also needs to be enough people searching for help in your area, and they need to be willing to pay for it. So this step is all about doing the proper evidence-based research to make sure business is solid and it's going to be profitable for you. So really do take the time to get this step right, because actually every step that follows depends upon it. And when I've had clients who breeze through this and then get stuck later, it's often because they didn't do this work in enough depth in the first place. Your content, your offers, your emails, what you say, your sales conversations, they all become so much easier when this foundation is rock solid. Okay, now we're into phase 2. Now, phase 2 is where we start to build a system that actually brings in consistent clients. And this is the one that I call income. So the first step in this phase is all about creating your sales funnel. So a funnel is marketing speak, really, and it's simply the journey that someone takes from first discovering you to becoming a paying client. And the key thing to understand is this: Most people are not ready to work with you the first time they come across you. They need time to build trust, to see your content a few times, to feel confident that you're the right person for them. So your job is to stay visible and valuable and available during that process. Your intention is to move them through what we call the stages of awareness, where you meet them when they are problem aware and you educate them to become solution aware, and then, of course, product aware, and then most aware when they're looking at your specific offer and comparing you against your competitors to decide if you are the best fit for them. Most dietitians have never heard of the stages of awareness, and understandably so. It's not needed when you work for the NHS because everyone comes to you at the very end when they are most aware. And actually, as a bit of a side note here, one of the reasons for high DNA rates is that often patients are much earlier in the awareness stages when they're referred into NHS services, and therefore they don't see the importance of attending appointments. When my clients understand these stages of awareness, honestly, the light bulbs ping all over the place. Now, in more tangible terms, this usually starts with a lead magnet, like a free resource that solves one very specific problem in exchange for an email address. Then you have a sequence of welcoming, high-value emails to build trust. You might have a low-cost offer. That's something really valuable at a bit of a no-brainer price, followed by regular nurture emails that position you as the obvious choice dietitian to work with when they're ready. And that means you have a system working in the background, bringing people into your world 24/7 and moving them closer towards working with you, even when you're not actively selling. Step 5 in the roadmap is then properly defining your core offers. And again, this step sits here in the roadmap for a very reason, that if your niche isn't clear, it's incredibly difficult to create an offer that people actually want. And that's why that step 3 has to come before step 5. Now, when it comes to offer creation, the most important part of this step is that your offer isn't built on assumptions, it's built on evidence. So instead of creating something based on what you think your ideal client needs, you're building it based on the evidence you've gathered and what they're actually asking for. You then need to think about the tangible end result of your offer, so what someone can actually expect to change or achieve or feel differently about by the end of it. Then you map out what's included, how you actually take them through that transformation, and what makes your approach or method unique compared to everything else that's already out there. You also want to consider your offer suite, because not everyone will want your one-to-one services. Some people are too busy for that level of commitment. Others don't have the budget. Strategically, an offer suite that ascends from one offer to the next is a really good idea, because when someone buys something from you and has a really good experience, they're much more likely to buy from you again. So if you can solve a small problem for them with something low cost, but still doesn't fix the bigger problem that they have, you've effectively opened up an invitation for them to take the next step. Now, there's so much more to an offer than just your services. We're looking at the transformation, the process steps, the reason why they should buy now and not put it off for later, and how you can address their objections and make them feel like this is truly the right next step for them in order to achieve their goals. And then the final step in phase 2 is actually about ethical sales. And notice we're only talking about sales now, not in step 1 or step 2 or even in step 3, because before you can sell confidently, you need to have the foundations underneath it. So by this stage, you've got clarity on your ideal client. You've built your core offers. You've created a system that actually brings inquiries into your business. But none of that matters if you don't know what to do when someone actually shows interest. Now, this is where a lot of dietitians start to feel a bit uncomfortable, maybe a bit unsure, and when imposter syndrome can rear its head because, well, we weren't exactly having sales conversations with our patients in the NHS. So this step is about knowing exactly what to say and do when that inquiry comes in. So things like how to structure a discovery call so it feels natural and makes it easy for someone saying yes, or how to run sales events like masterclasses or challenges, and of course how to do this ethically without feeling salesy or pushy. essentially helping people make an informed decision about whether to work with you or not. And then, of course, what to do afterwards. So how to follow up properly if someone doesn't book straight away, and how to handle hesitations and objections. And that is essentially all of phase 2. By now, you'll have a system for income generation. So then we move on to sales 3, and this is the one I like to call independence. And this first step in phase 3 is all about growing your audience. Now, you know what? This is where most people start, and often my clients come to me having already started, and sometimes it lands as a bit of a shock when I suggest they stop trying to build their audience. They want to jump straight into posting social media content and writing blogs. Some of them even have podcasts or YouTube channels. They want to be growing an audience and increasing their visibility. But you know what? If those earlier phases aren't in place, all you're doing is driving more people towards a business with very shaky foundations and no means of turning them into paying clients. I cannot tell you how many times I've had clients who've turned up with very large Instagram audiences, some at 20,000 plus, some 200,000, and they've asked me how they can monetize it. And sadly, sometimes they can't, because they've essentially spent time and energy building an audience of the wrong people. And that's why building an audience with intention comes now and doesn't come earlier. Now, when you are actually ready for this step, it's okay to start by picking just one platform. Perfect growing your audience using just the one before you move on to the next. Early in my nutrition business, I made the mistake of trying to be everywhere straight away. I was writing weekly blog posts, posting daily on Instagram, dabbling in YouTube, running my own Facebook group, and it was way too much all at once, and I began to hate my business. My advice is just to pick one lane and just commit to it. You can always bring in team members to help you when that platform is reliably bringing in leads that turn into paying clients, to allow you the time to start on a second platform. And of course, remember that every single piece of content you create for your audience should have a purpose, one clear next step for people to make, to move them through those stages of awareness and along that journey towards becoming a paying client. You never create content just for content's sake. Now, in step 8, the roadmap is where you start thinking about sustainable growth. So this is the step that separates businesses that grow from businesses that plateau. Because this is the point where I recommend you do some simple planning. That means getting clear on your revenue goals, mapping out the promotions you'll need to do in order to hit those goals, and of course, understanding how many clients you'll actually need to make the money that you want to make in your business. This will help you manage your time and your energy levels, use natural peak points in the year like awareness weeks and seasonal times when your audience are most likely to be looking for support. And you'll also avoid constantly guessing what to focus on next and feeling like you're busy, but it's not really moving the needle in the business. Instead, you'll know what you're working on, and the actions that you're taking actually link back to your income goals and your client numbers. And now the final step in the business prescription path is about scaling with systems. And you don't need to worry about this until everything else is perfected. I hear a lot of people talking about scaling businesses without truly understanding what that means. It's not something you do until everything is optimized and running well, like making sure your onboarding of new clients runs really smoothly without constant back and forth, like making sure your client experience feels seamless from start to finish, and making sure your tech and your admin are set up in a way that supports you. And of course, that you're happy with consistent flow of inquiries and can actually begin to forecast the number of sales that you're going to make. Now, it's at this stage when you can start to scale up with things like ads and expanding your team and even your own personal development in order to optimize productivity. It's at this stage where business stops feeling like something you're constantly trying to keep on top of, and it starts feeling like something that actually supports you and your lifestyle. And that's the real goal, isn't it? So that's the business prescription path roadmap in a nutshell. Most of you listening are probably somewhere in that phase 1 or phase 2. The biggest lesson really is not to rush ahead, because the clients that I work with who get the best results are the ones who take the time and make the effort to actually work through each phase step by step by step and in the right order. Okay, so now a little action step for you. I'd love for you to grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and just take a moment to honestly score yourself across those 3 phases. Where are you feeling strong right now? And where do you know there's a bit of work still left to be done? Is it the idea phase where your focus is on mindset and the operational foundations and gathering the evidence base? Or is it the income phase where all of those ducks are in a row and you're now optimizing your funnel and your offer suite and refining your sales processes? Or is it independence, where you're building an audience intentionally, filled with the right people, and working on business planning for consistent revenue, bringing in team, running ads, and scaling up? Now, maybe you don't even know what phase or step you should be working on. Maybe you don't know if you're currently working on the right thing. Maybe you just don't know what you don't know. Wherever you are personally in your business, Accelerate, my 12-month business coaching program, is designed to meet you exactly where you're at. I'll help you pinpoint what part of the business prescription path actually needs your attention right now in order to have a successful, profitable business. You'll work through the path with my guidance, and there's 3 tiers depending on your budget and how much support you want from me. Tiers start from just £225 per month to make it accessible to you as much as possible. So if you're a little bit interested, right now is the best time to apply for a spot and get yourself on the wait list, because anyone who's invited to join the wait list is in with a chance of winning a £1,000 cash bonus. Now, waitlist applications close this Sunday on the 14th of June. So if you want to be in the draw, make sure you apply for a spot before then. And you can apply by heading to the application form that are linked in the show notes of this episode. Bye for now. That's it for another week. Thank you so much for joining me as we explore the abundance of strategies to help you recapture that feeling of possibility and excitement as you drive your business forwards and beyond the clinic room. If you found today's episode inspirational, then don't forget to like and subscribe to the show to stay in the loop for more valuable advice that I'm going to be sharing each week. If you want to be the first to hear about new episode releases, news and ways that I can support your business growth, then please don't forget to check out the links in the show notes, and you can also connect with me from there. Don't keep me a secret. I would be delighted if you left a review and shared this podcast with your colleagues. Until next time, bye for now.